Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Wrestling Highlights of the Week, presented by My Two Cents Podcast, hosted by G2. I am G2. Now, for the people that's unaware of what the Wrestling Highlights of the Week is and what it consists of, well, let me tell you. Wrestling Highlights of the Week is me talking about everything that happened in the world of professional wrestling, whether it comes from the world of WWE, AEW, or TNA. I talk about things that happen on the screens of these promotions and a little bit of stuff that happens behind the scenes, the rumors, and the speculations. Now, on this week's episode, each company had their own thing going. With WWE, they're building towards the Royal Rumble as per usual, because that's their next big pay-per-view. But they're building towards Saturday Night's Main Event, which will be happening tonight if you're listening to this episode on a Saturday. So that's what happened this week in the WWE's world. For TNA, they are coming off of a big high of their TNA Genesis pay-per-view. So we had a fallout of that on their TNA Wrestling Impact episode this week. And this was their first time being live, they said, in the last 8 years. So it was a big episode for them this past Thursday. So we'll talk about stuff that happened there. And with AEW, they're building towards their Australian Grand Slam event that's happening in February. So they're building towards that. There are matches like announced on this past episode of Dynamite or for that show. And there was kind of one thing that has been rumored on, I'm not going to say, there's been one thing that's been rumored online about AEW that it kind of seems that it's been confirmed that happened on Dynamite this week. And again, I'm going to get all into that on this week's episode of the Wrestling Highlights of the Week. So that's what that usually consists of. So with that being said, let's get on to talk about what happened this week in the wrestling world. Now, I'm going to start with AEW first because TNA has something to do with WWE because they're in their partnership. So you got a little bit of their partnership officially beginning this week. So I'm going to get to that after AEW here. So AEW Dynamite this week, we had Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay have that little face-to-face chat in the middle of the ring. First thing that I do want to make notice is that Kenny Omega, it seems that he's not going to be using his new theme whenever he has talking segments, because last week he came out to his new theme that he debuted at Wrestle Dynasty, and this week he came out to Battle Cry, his AEW original theme. Now, that caught me by surprise, and I'm pretty sure it caught a lot of people by surprise. AEW likes to do these little things because you got a little bit of that as well with the Private Party as well. Private Party, they came out to their Flex song that they debuted, last year? But then they returned back to their Shots song in their AEW World Tag Title reign. And this week, they came out to Flex, and then as they're in the ring, they remixed it to Shots. So AEW does like to mess around with wrestlers' themes here and there. So seeing them do that with Kenny here for this talking segment with Ospreay, it was cool to see, all right? Now, getting to the actual talking points of Ospreay and Omega, Ospreay tells Kenny that he's kind of come back at AEW at the wrong time because right now, everything's going completely to hell. You got Moxley holding the AEW World title hostage, and Ospreay has mentioned how he's trying to get over there to try to save the world title, but he can't get there because he has to deal with the Don Callis family. And he tells Kenny that he's been trying to get a move away from the Don Callis family. He's out of that family. He didn't like the way that they were doing business, and that he needs Kenny Omega's help with literally getting rid of the Don Callis family off his back. Kenny tells him point blank, I don't trust you. I didn't forget what you and Don did to me. The last confrontation that they had was at Forbidden Door in 2023. And Will Ospreay took advantage of Don Callis' whole playbook on him. So Kenny already has a bad feeling for Will Ospreay off that alone, one. And two, when he was gone, he saw how Will Ospreay became the man. And he kind of took a dig at Ospreay, saying that you became the man once I left. People started paying attention towards you because I left. If I was here, you wouldn't have been the number one guy. And since I'm back, you're now number 2, and number 1 is here. So you get that little best versus best mantra and talk from Kenny to Ospreay. And Ospreay's not liking it because Ospreay and Kenny, they do have some heated history. If people were to look back into their New Japan stuff where Kenny Omega talked down to Ospreay whenever they had their match or building up to their match at Wrestle Kingdom a couple years ago. That whole thing was like built on this. Kenny Omega being the top guy over in New Japan, and when he left, he tried to give the reins over to a Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay couldn't fill up Kenny's shoes, and he couldn't do it because of a global pandemic. So you see Ospreay still carrying that anger to Kenny towards that. So after Kenny does the whole "I'm the best and you're just number 2," you see Ospreay get in the face of Omega, and it seems that they're about to really come to blows a little bit. But Don Callis comes out. And before Don can really say a word, Kenny, just like a couple weeks ago, he dashes right out of the ring, tried to get Don Callis. But before he could, Konosuke Takeshita will come out there and start beating up on Kenny. Kyle Fletcher will come out to help out on the beating up on Kenny. So now it's Takeshita and Fletcher beating up on Kenny Omega as Ospreay's in the ring watching it. And he would take off his jacket, make the save to save Kenny. Now you got Kenny and Ospreay going against Fletcher and Takeshita outside the ring into the crowd. Brian Cage and Lance Archer, they would pop up, and that was a 4-on-2 situation. Kenny and Ospreay, they would hold their own. They would take out Lance Archer by hitting him with a suplex through a table at the merch stand. They'll do some battling with Brian Cage, still do some battle with Fletcher and Takeshita. In the end, Kenny Omega, he would climb like a scaffold that AEW has, and he has a moonsault onto, I want to say it was Brian Cage, like some security guys, and Takeshita. While Ospreay, he hits a moonsault off of like one of the fan like guards, like the guarding seats, like up in the stands. So he hits a moonsault off of that onto Fletcher and some security. Then you see the Don Callis family retreat. Omega and Ospreay, they would climb the scaffold, and Omega, he would throw out the challenge for Grand Slam in Australia, a tag match. Fletcher and Takeshita going against Ospreay and Omega. That match gets made official. We all knew it was going to come to that. We all knew it was going to be a tag matchup, but Kenny actually just makes it official, so we get that. So that's how Dynamite starts off. It was a cool way to start with the brawl that happened. But it's going to be interesting to see how Kenny and Ospreay actually do team together. Yes, they're right now cool, standing side by side, going against Don Callis' family. But remember, it's not, that was just a brawling scenario. When it comes down to getting as competitors in the ring, both of them, I'm not going to say both, Kenny has an ego of being the best. And I have a feeling that whenever during that match, Ospreay is going to be doing his business and Kenny's going to tag himself in. That's whenever we're going to get to see both Ospreay and Omega, that little team dynamic, that whole positive stuff that they have with one another right now, going to start slowly tearing apart at that moment. But I could be wrong, but we'll have to wait to see at Grand Slam Australia. So that's how Dynamite will start. So that's cool. Another big highlight that I said to happen on Dynamite this week, we have new AEW Tag Team Champions. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin of the Hurt Syndicate, they took on Private Party, and they beat Private Party to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. This was more of a 80-20 matchup. Like, Shelton and Bobby put a beat down on Private Party. You understand me? And for them to become new Tag Team Champions, I'm not mad at it. The people in the crowd weren't mad at it. I'll just say that Private Party's reign as AEW Tag Team Champions was not the best. If anything, when you look at the AEW Tag Team reign, I'll say they probably have the worst reign, and they probably won't have a memorable reign. I'll say I'll put this up with I'll put this behind like SCU, because SCU was the first tag team champions of AEW, and I don't think people remember their reign like that. The only thing they remember about SCU's reign was that they lost the titles to Hangman and Omega. So Private Party, they won the belts from the Young Bucks, but nobody's going to remember the Private Party's reign as tag champions. That's how bad they were booked as tag team champions. They weren't in nothing memorable until they had this thing with Hurt Syndicate right here. So hopefully whenever they do get back to competing for those AEW World Tag Team Championships, and hopefully when they do become the World Tag Team Champions again later in their career, they actually do get into some memorable feuds. They actually do get to be presented as champions in some manner, and hopefully that's going to be the case now for everybody here. And what I mean by that is, since AEW has the Hurt Syndicate, and since the fans love the Hurt Syndicate, they love Bobby, they love Shelton, you see it in their entrance, you see when they come out, the people are loving them. They are an unstoppable group right now. The AEW tag team division has to be built around that. It has to be built of, hey, who's the team's going to really step up to take the titles off the Hurt Syndicate? Because right now, they're an unbeatable unit. That's just the truth. So that's what should be built for this tag division. Get the tag team, start doing their business, start being worked around as a great tag team division. Once again, get that together and have them start trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be the team to take the titles off the Hurt Syndicate? Let that be the marquee. Like, let that, not even going to say the marquee, let that be the mission statement for that tag division. The same way that they're trying to do with the Death Rider thing, with Moxley telling people to step up to take the title off of him, actually make your tag division a competitive field, make it a competitive division, and have them really be hungry to try to take that freaking tag titles off of the Hurt Syndicate, to the point that you'll have a tag team even fail, but it'll give them like the shake of Bobby and Shelton and MVP. Like, you might get a tag team that, like, people might say, okay, they're not going to win, but you see them in a competitive, fierce, like, match with the Hurt Syndicate that Bobby and Shelton and MVP might even say, you know what, this team's good. And then they shake their hand, and that gives, one, the failing team the rub of saying that the Hurt Syndicate respects them, and two, it gives the fans new eyesight to see them as, okay, this is a team that we need to pay attention to in the future. And also, they almost had the Hurt Syndicate. Maybe if they have another match with them, maybe they actually could get the titles off of them. That's how the tag division needs to be built around, since the Hurt Syndicate is your tag champions. But again, it's free game for thought. That's all I'm just saying here. But Hurt Syndicate, new tag champions, congrats for them. Private Party, they got to restart their self again, and hopefully when they become tag champions again, they actually do have a competitive reign, if you will. Another big thing that happened on Dynamite this week, and this is something that I was alluding to earlier with the online rumors, looks like it's been officially stated. Julia Hart, Buddy Matthews, and Brody King, they are no longer a part of House of Black. House of Black is dead. It seems that Malachi Black is off of AEW television because Julia Hart, she had a match against Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter would beat Julia Hart, and after the match was over, Jamie Hayter would give Julia words of encouragement saying that you're a badass, whether you're by yourself or with your two other guys, and how you have a bright future and all that. So you had that endorsement that it seems like every member of the House of Black has been getting. Because Buddy Matthews, after his match against Will Ospreay gave him that exact same kind of talk to Buddy. Brody King kind of got a words of encouragement from Adam Copeland a couple weeks ago on Collision backstage. And now with Jamie Hayter giving this to Julia, and then you see later in the night, you had a legit vignette of Brody, Buddy, and Julia just being with each other. And they say that they were once following words of guidance, but now that voice has gone silent. they're all no longer falling under said voice. They're no longer falling under a leader. They're now together. This group has no leaders. And now that's just what it is. Buddy, Julia, and Brody are now their own entity in themselves. And it seems like Malachi Black is no longer with AEW for the foreseeable future. Now, I'm not certain if his contract is up with AEW or not, or he got some couple months left before he's actually going. But it seems that Malachi Black's time with AEW is officially over. That's at least what that vignette legit kind of like screamed out to us right there. So, yeah. So it does kind of give some credence to say, hey, you know where he's going next. You know where Malachi's going next. Probably off to WWE. And I will say, if he doesn't pop up at the Rumble, I'm going to say this again. If he does not pop up at the Rumble, I want him to debut the night after Mania or that week after Mania. That's all I care about, because I'll say it because I'm not the WWE portion of this. If you debut at the Rumble, that at least tells us that they have some plans for you leading out of the Rumble into Elimination Chamber going into Mania. Because Malachi Black, Aleister Black, his WWE name, he was a WWE Triple H guy under NXT. He had a great entrance, all that type of stuff. And I can see him being a guy that Triple H would like to get his hands on, or even Shawn Michaels with NXT would like to get his hands on to make him into a big star once again and actually have him be on television and reach his full potential. So again, if he doesn't show up at the Rumble, I think it'll be a waste to have him pop up the night after the Rumble or leading into WrestleMania, because they'll just get lost in the shuffle because the storylines have already been laid out for what they want to do with certain people going into Mania. Because right now that's their big target. Mania, let's get to Mania, have a hell of a show at Mania, and then we'll figure everything out. Or they already have a plan in place for everything what they want to do after Mania. But if he doesn't show up at the Rumble, he's going to get lost in the cards. If he show up the night after Rumble or Elimination Chamber, he's going to get lost in the cards. He needs to be impactful. Malachi Black, Aleister Black needs to be impactful. So have him show up at the Rumble, but if not, if his contract is still AEW at that time, have him show up probably the night or week after, or the week like after Mania. So he can have a nice, impactful debut on WWE. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, Malachi Black's time with AEW looks like it's done here. So it is what it is with that. Jeff Jarrett, he came out to the ring. He still says that he wants to go out and win the AEW World title. He talks about his little spat that he had with MJF last week. It doesn't matter. Jeff Jarrett, he ends up calling out Jon Moxley, again, for the world title. Moxley doesn't come out, but Claudio does. Claudio will beat up on Jeff Jarrett. Tell him that, hey, if you want to get to Mox, you have to get through me. So we'll see about that. So Jeff Jarrett has to get through Claudio first. So, all right, let's see how that goes. MJF, he will come out later. MJF would, again, looks like he's still needling Jeff Jarrett here, saying that the only way you're going to beat someone like a Moxley is with the help of MJF. And since you don't want to do the bidding of the devil, you're going to have to pay the consequences for that. So MJF's more likely going to screw Jeff Jarrett in his efforts to go after the AEW World title. After that was over, Hangman will come out because MJF kind of did interrupt Hangman's match before he actually could get underway. So Hangman would come out. He would get in the face of MJF, tell him to get out of his ring, and MJF would leave. So it seemed we might be building up to a MJF and Hangman situation later in the year. They're not going to do it immediately because Hangman is still a bad guy. MJF is a bad guy. So I can see them doing that when Hangman is back to being a good guy again. So MJF will leave. Hangman will have his match. He went against Scrub. Hangman will beat the guy. After the match is over, Christopher Daniels will come out on the stage. Christopher Daniels in a neck brace because of his Texas death match that he had with Hangman on Collision. Christopher Daniels would tell Hangman, hey, listen, I don't want to fight you. You beat me already at Collision. I don't need to go through that type of hassle again. My career is done. And Christopher Daniels would apologize to Hangman, saying that he was just trying to be a friend to Hangman, but he sees that through his efforts, he was just pushing Hangman over and over again, which led to them fighting, and he apologizes for that. And again, he tells Hangman that he's done, that Hangman's retired him, and you see Hangman kind of have like some resolve to that, like, what? You're retired? And Christopher Daniels just kind of like give him the pat on the shoulder and then walks away. And now Hangman has to deal with the burden that he retired Christopher Daniels. He kind of doesn't like it. He shows the camera out of his face, and Hangman would just walk away. So again, we're getting towards Hangman starting to touch his emotional sides, touch his reality, saying that he's becoming a monster and he might not like this guy that he's becoming. So again, we're probably going to see the redemption of Hangman towards the end of 2025 here in AEW. We had Swerve against AR Fox. During the match, Ricochet would come out and he would catch the eye of Swerve. Prince Nana would grab a pipe, start chasing Swerve to the back. Not chasing Swerve, chasing Ricochet to the back, excuse me. Swerve would beat AR Fox. Even shake AR Fox's hand. So it seems like whatever beef that they had, they did it because they had beef, 2 years ago? So they looks like they did their beef there. After the match was over, Ricochet will pop up on the screen. He has a scissor to the neck of Nana, telling him that, hey, you guys can't just be going out there and bullying me. This is what happens. This is the effect of it. And you see that Ricochet tells them point blank that he is going to speak to the people next week and that Swerve might actually want to listen to what he has to say. And he leaves. So we get that. All right, cool. Swerve and Ricochet, again, they're building towards their match they have coming up on in Atlanta in 2 weeks. So there we go with that. We had the main event, Pac versus Copeland, or Adam Copeland, if you know him better as that, or Edge. Adam Copeland, or Cope, would defeat Pac. After the match is over, you would get the Death Riders come out and beat up on Cope. FTR doesn't come out because they are taken care of in the back. Who ends up making the save was Jay White. Jay White would come out to try to save Cope, but the numbers game was too much with Pac, Wheeler Yuta, Marina Shafir, Claudio, and Jon Moxley. They would eventually just put a beat down on Jay White. Jon Moxley would put the Bulldog choke on Cope and leave Cope just unconscious as they head to the back, and that's how Dynamite would end. Again, cool. Dynamite was a cool episode, but again, my grief with the Dynamite Death Rider storyline is one, that AEW World Title hasn't been shown in months. I would love for it to be shown, whether it be tattered or whatever. Something needs to be shown for those titles, and also the Trios Championships. Get them off the Death Riders, because the Trios division needs to get back on track. Same thing like the Tag division. Both of those divisions need to be back on track because you got a big bloated roster. People need to start moving around and doing something and competing for those freaking Trios Championships. Get the mess off the Death Riders so we can get that kicking and going away, all right? Now, I believe that's everything I do want to talk about with the AEW front. So with that, that was your AEW Wrestling Highlights of the Week. And now I want to move over to TNA. TNA, they have a partnership with WWE NXT. It was made official last week. And we got the official makings of that at TNA's Genesis pay-per-view this past week. I, for full disclosure, did not see the pay-per-view. I saw highlights of the pay-per-view. At said pay-per-view, Genesis, you had Ashanti D. Adonis pop up. He was on the pre-show, it seems, and he went against Jake Something. Jake Something would beat Ashanti D. Adonis. On the actual card, you had Masha Slamovich defeat Rosemary in their Clockwork Orange, which is their no holds barred matchup in TNA for the TNA Knockouts Championship. After the match was over, Cora Jade would appear, and it seems that we're building towards Cora Jade and Masha Slamovich. And also, if you didn't watch NXT last week, Masha Slamovich was at NXT last week, and you see that Cora looked at Masha and Masha looked at Cora. So it seems like Cora was just paying a visit and just repaying the visit from Masha popping up at NXT last week and Cora doing it here at Genesis. So again, she just repaid the visit here with that. You had Tessa Blanchard defeating Jordynne Grace. They say it was a great match. I'm gonna have to try to find it to see it, because I think knowing who Jordynne Grace is and knowing who Tessa was before she left TNA, Tessa was putting on good matches. I'm pretty sure it was a good match. So again, I saw the highlights of it. It was solid. I do want to see the match. So yeah, with Jordynne Grace, more than likely that being her last match, she puts over Tessa Blanchard, as we all knew that she would, because they want to, again, reestablish Tessa Blanchard as a force in TNA, and Jordynne Grace being the woman to do the favors for Tessa. That was cool to see. So there you go with that. Mike Santana, he defeated Josh Alexander in an I Quit match. And after the match was over, Josh did shake his hand. He told him that you are now the standard bearer in TNA, and that I did say I quit, but I also quit TNA as well. So we get some resolution on that on TNA's Impact this week. Also on TNA Genesis, Joe Hendry. He finally accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, become the new TNA World Champion. He would defeat Nick Nemeth. And as usual, somehow, some way, during this matchup, JBL popped up, and he did so because Frankie Kazarian, who was looking to call his shot and cash in his Call Your Shot Gauntlet ticket, which is basically their version of Money in the Bank for TNA. JBL pops up, hits Frankie Kazarian with a clothesline, lay him out, and that's it. Again, Joe Hendry wins, holds the TNA World Championship now. Now he's their TNA World Champion. That is the big stuff that happened at Genesis. Oh yeah, Fraxium, which is Nathan Frazier and Axiom, the NXT Tag Champions. They were there at Genesis. They watched the Hardys going against the Rascals. The Hardys would defeat the Rascals to retain their TNA World Championships. And on the TNA Impact show, you had Nathan Frazier and Axiom put up their NXT Tag titles against the Rascals. And now this was because a couple months ago, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, they were on NXT. They won a triple threat tag matchup to be the team to face Nathan Frazier and Axiom a couple months ago, and he never got that chance because of Trey Miguel getting took out by Wesley. So now we actually get that on the way on TNA this week. So I did like how they threw that back out there for people to understand how the Rascals got another title opportunity after just losing a title opportunity against the Hardys at TNA Genesis. So I did like how they made that remembrance there. Anyway, moving off of Genesis, going over to their TNA live episode this week, we had some debuts and we had some re-debuts in TNA. Joe Hendry, he would come out, make his statement as champion, saying that he's happy to be TNA World Champion. Talk about how he's a fighting world champion, saying that he'll go against anybody from anywhere, any promotion. Santino will come out and say that he likes how Joe Hendry speaks, likes how he talks, so he's going to put Joe Hendry to the test. He's going to have Joe Hendry defend his TNA World title against this man. And out walks Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona, free agent. He's been popping up everywhere. He just popped up, at AEW's Ring of Honor in December, whenever he went against Chris Jericho at Final Battle for the Ring of Honor World Championship. And Matt Cardona, he's always had an open, rotating door with TNA. So him being back here to go against Joe Hendry for the TNA World title, that was cool. That happened in the main event. You had Mance Warner. For people that don't know, Mance Warner is an independent professional wrestler. More, I'll say, known for being a hardcore guy, but he does know how to wrestle, like standard wrestle without just being a hardcore guy. He makes his TNA debut officially because there was a storyline that was leading up to this episode of TNA where PCO and Sami Callihan, every time they were in the ring, the lights would flash, and on the screen, it would be a 23 just popping up. So Sami Callihan, he would pop up on TNA this week. He would talk about how he's tired of this and how he wants this whole 23 mystery to end, and he ends up calling the person out. And out walks Steph DeLander. Steph DeLander was last saw a couple months ago. She had to step away because she had to get neck surgery. She pops back up, and she has the TNA Digital Media Championship. Now, if you've been watching TNA, the Digital Media Champion for TNA was PCO. And since PCO did something at a wrestling event this past week at GCW, he took the TNA Digital Media Championship, put it on a chair, and tried to smash it with a hammer and got on the microphone and started talking derogatory towards TNA. It seems that PCO's time with TNA is over. So Steph DeLander having the Digital Media Championship. She talks about how she got that in the divorce because she was married to PCO storyline wise. And since PCO's out of TNA, she got 50% of whatever PCO had, and that included the Digital Media Championship. Anyway, this is when she would say she wants to introduce her new man. The light cuts off. The light pops back on. Mance Warner's in the ring, attacking Sami Callihan. And it seems that they just gifted Mance Warner the TNA Digital Media Championship. Again, I'm not mad at it. You instantly get to make someone new in your promotion that people don't know who this is. It gets people to care about who this person is. And it just puts a target on their back for Sami Callihan and other people to try to go after him. Because now Mance Warner is your new Digital Media Champion. He has gold that other people might want. Sami Callihan is going to want his piece of flesh. And again, it's more likely going to be a hardcore match. It was not announced when it will happen, but you know it's going to be something to see when it happens. So TNA was able to hit a couple of points by debuting Mance Warner this way. So that was cool for them to do it. And Mance is with his actual girlfriend, Steph DeLander in TNA. So let's see how far we can get with this. We also had the re-debut of Mustafa Ali. Ali would appear after Santana would be out here to talk his talk, talking about how he's the guy now, how he wants to be TNA World Champion, and how he's going to be gunning for the TNA World Championship. And after he's done saying all his stuff, Mustafa Ali would come out. Mustafa Ali hasn't been shown or hasn't appeared, if you will, on TNA since, I'll say, a week or two after Slammiversary, because he challenged Nick Nimbus for the TNA World Championship after losing to Speedball Mike Bailey at Slammiversary for the X Division Championship. So Ali has been gone away from TNA for, I'll say, roughly 5 months. So he's back now. He makes the announcement that he has signed with TNA. I'm glad that he did that because Mustafa Ali was a nice addition to the TNA roster last year. And he was missed by people. I missed Mustafa Ali on television because his career, well, his character that he was doing on TNA, I enjoyed it. And I actually enjoyed his in-ring work. So him now signing with TNA, that's great there. And he talks about how he wants to go after that TNA World Championship, and he'll be a candidate that the people actually can believe in. Again, taking a shot at Joe Hendry there. And he just kind of walks away. And Santana, standing there, Mustafa Ali does not even acknowledge Santana at all. So you can tell that they're going to on the collision course, and that's going to be cool when we get that. That happened on TNA this week. We had, as I stated, Axiom and Nathan Frazier. They defended their NXT titles against the Rascals. The Rascals looked like they were going to win the freaking NXT tag titles until Wesley and his crew comes out and screw them over Wes would get on the apron, distract the referee. Tyree or one another guy that's hanging with Wes would get on the apron, shake the rope that I want to say it was Trey Miguel was on the top rope, and shake it and have him land his crotch on the top turnbuckle. And God, this allowed Axiom and Nathan Frazier to hit their tag finish. Axiom will hit the Spanish Fly off the top rope, and then Nathan Frazier will hit the Phoenix Splash, and that's how they retain their NXT tag titles. So there you go with there. Wesley, he still has a cold heart towards the Rascals, and that just tells me that their business is not over, and you could probably expect the Rascals to pop up on NXT this upcoming week. So you could probably expect that there. Speaking of, with the partnership of NXT, Cora Jade, she popped up on TNA this week because you had Masha and Spitfire going against Ash and Heather by Elegance and Rosemary. Cora Jade would appear towards the end of the match, distract Masha Slamovich by handing her an envelope, which is something that Masha used to do whenever she targeted her opponents. And as Masha opens up the envelope, she sees her face on it marked down in the X. This allowed Ash to hit Danny Luna, who's behind Masha on the turnbuckle, knock Masha off the apron, and Ash would get Danny in a roll-up, get the win. There you go. So Cora Jade, Masha Slamovich, they're on the collision course as well. Josh Alexander, he was supposed to leave. It seems like he is leaving TNA, but again, they have a little bit more weeks to deal with him. He's out there with his crew, and he tells them that he wants them to do it their way. He believes in them. He wants them to go out and make a name for themselves, be the best tag team in TNA, but he wants them to do it the right way. The Northern Armory, Icarus, and Williams, they're not trying to hear this from Josh. They tell him, you can't leave. And Josh says, yes, guys, I am leaving. And you would hear from Williams tell him, no, you're not understanding me. You can't leave. And you see him chop block Josh Alexander from behind. Icarus kicks Josh in the face. And now you got Icarus and Williams, the two guys that were hanging with Josh during this time, start putting the boots to him. Eric Young would run down, make the save. They make the tag match set up for next week, where it will be Icarus and Williams going against Josh Alexander and Eric Young. And I can still say this might be a swerve, where Josh Alexander is going to still swerve on EY and hook back up with his boys, or this could be a nice tag matchup here. And this could give, again, Icarus and Williams the rub. Because, again, there's still two guys that are new to everyone still. They don't got a lot of credibility underneath their name. They need to beat a person of relevance. So I can see them doing that with EY and Josh Alexander next week. And that might be the case. So we'll just have to wait and see with that. Now, moving over to the main event, we will talk about Joe Hendry defending the TNA World title against a Matt Cardona. Joe Hendry would defend and retain his TNA World title. Again, you had JBL pop up. JBL, he pops up when Matt Cardona wants to use the TNA World title on Joe Hendry as the referee's down. JBL would hit Matt Cardona with a clothesline. He would stare down with Joe Hendry, because Joe Hendry will look at JBL like, what are you doing? And they wouldn't speak a word. This would go on for like 30 seconds between Joe Hendry and JBL. Just them having to stare down with one another. Until JBL leaves and he heads his way out through the crowd. Matt Cardona would get in the ring, hit Joe Hendry with the TNA World title. Joe Hendry kicks out at 2, and then he hits a standing ovation on Matt Cardona. And that's how TNA would end. I would love for someone, TNA, Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry, JBL, someone, for the love of God, tell me what is going on with JBL. Because this man has been doing this for months. Popping up in TNA, and doing this. And just costing people their opportunities at being world champion. When it was Nick Nemeth as champion, he would do that. Now it's Joe Hendry now. Yo, dog, something has to happen. And it doesn't even make sense because when Joe Hendry went against Nick Nemeth at Bound for Glory, he hit Joe Hendry with a clothesline. This is after, technically JBL hits Ryan Nemeth with one, and then Joe Hendry kind of questioned JBL as JBL was trying to walk away, and then JBL hit Joe Hendry with a clothesline at Bound for Glory. But still, he still hit Joe Hendry with a clothesline. So now you saving him? Something needs to make sense to me. Hopefully we get an explanation soon. I know Nick Nemeth is supposed to pop up next week on TNA and explain himself, what's his feelings or his mindset since he lost the TNA title to Joe Hendry, but we need an explanation for why Mans is here. JBL, seriously, something needs to be done with that. But anyway, that's your TNA Wrestling Highlights of the Week. And now let's move over to WWE. Before I get to the main roster of WWE, let's just talk about the quick highlights that happened on NXT this week. Quick highlights, NXT this week, you had Tony D'Angelo defend his NXT North American Championship. He defended it against Ridge Holland. He would retain his NXT North American Championship thanks to the interference of Izzy Dane. Izzy Dane, who isn't part of Shawn Spears' group. Ridge Holland seems like he's cool with Shawn Spears' little group, maybe even be an affiliate. Izzy Dane probably just wanted to stick it to Shawn Spears, who Shawn has constantly been trying to get Izzy to need his guidance, need his help, and she's been telling him to screw off every week. It seems like she just wanted to stick a needle into Shawn Spears for that. That's the reason why she helped Tony retain his North American Championship. Again, that's the only way I can see it, but we'll probably have to wait and see the weeks to come with that. You had, what else is another big thing to happen? It seems like we're going to get a tag matchup somewhere in the line in a couple weeks, because Cora Jade and Roxanne will come out when Julia and Bayley are having their talk, and it would end up in a brawl because Roxanne's already beefing with Bayley. Julia is the NXT Women's Champion, and it seems that we might be getting a triple threat maybe with Roxanne, Bayley, and Julia. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Bayley going after the NXT title, that's cool because she tried to go after the Women's Championship on SmackDown last week. Didn't work. She failed against Nia Jax this week on Raw. So her going after Rhea, I don't see that happening soon. So her being a credible name, being a name worth something in NXT, and her already having an instant credibility to go after the NXT Women's Championship, that could work. So I can see them doing a triple threat match somewhere down the line with Bayley, Roxanne, and Julia. Maybe. Cora is not going to be involved in the women's matchup, probably as to help Roxanne, but not a fatal four-way style, because as I already said earlier, she's having her business with Masha, more than likely for the TNA Knockouts title. So there you go with that. What else happened on NXT this week? You had Wesley talk smack to Dion Lennox, who's a guy in the back. Talk about how Dion isn't a guy that has any championship accomplishments. He isn't decorated like Wes, and how he isn't going to be the guy to take the title off of Obafemi. This is all backstage segment. Trick Williams will pop in. Wes will talk trash to Trick, saying that the man was in the penthouse, now he's in the outhouse. Trick Williams, not in the mood to play around. He ends up smacking the taste out of Wes's mouth. And Wes will have a match with Dion. And as you see Wes make his way to the ring, you see him having the handprint mark of Trick's hand on his face. So you get that. Wes would defeat Dion, And get on the mic after the match, talk some more smack. Trick Williams will come out. Trick will handle Wes's little guys around the ring, and he will start battling with Wes. And it seems that we're probably going to get a Wes and Trick Williams match next week, which, inclined, I can see the Rascals interfering that and, again, costing Wes his match with Trick Williams next week because of Wesley and his little group, costing the Rascals their shot at the NXT tag titles this week on TNA. So there you go with that. What else big major news happened on NXT? I did like how Shawn Michaels and the WWE NXT team still put Jada Parker on the screen. I did like how they continue doing that because Jada Parker, she is a person that still has a lot of potential in NXT. She still has a lot of fanfare, and I just don't want that one small thing that happened on internet last week to kill her career. So I'm glad that Shawn did put her on television this week, and she's kind of in a story with Kalani Jordan, it seems. Kalani would interfere in Jada Parker's match because of their little spat that they had backstage. What was it? Jada had a match against Carmen Petrovich. There it is. Jada seems that she was going to win. She was about to hit her running hip attack on Carmen, but Kalani Jordan, she would get on the apron, distract Jada Parker, and this allowed Carmen to get Jada in a roll-up and get the win. So it seems that we're going to get Kalani and Jada having their little thing with one another, which I'm cool with that. So again, I'm happy that Shawn and the WWE NXT team is still working with Jada Parker. I'm really happy with that. The biggest thing is Obafemi defending his NXT championship against Eddie Thorpe. Oba would retain his NXT championship. As we all knew that was going to happen. Eddie is not winning that title no time soon right now. At least not right now. After the match was over, Trick Williams will come out. Trick gets in the face of Obafemi. Oba will hold the NXT championship. And it seems that we know where we're going on this collision course with these two big guys. Eddie Thorpe will try to, again, run his nose into the business of that. But Trick will hit him with a trick knee to lay Eddie out. And that's how NXT would end. So that's your NXT Wrestling Highlights of the Week, and now we move over to the main roster. Now, as I stated earlier in the episode, when we talk about the main roster of the WWE, this week was all about building towards tonight's episode of Saturday Night's main event, and also next week's premium live event, the Royal Rumble. Now, this week we had more people get themselves, I would say, involved or say they're going to participate in the Royal Rumble. For the men, we have Shinsuke Nakamura say that he's going to put himself in the men's Royal Rumble. For the women's Royal Rumble, we had Bianca Belair, Naomi, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Nia Jax, and a returning Charlotte Flair state that they are all going to be inside the women's Royal Rumble. So, as I stated, we're building towards that. We had the whole superstar trade window stuff between Raw and SmackDown. We had people actually make trades this week. Last week, we got notified that the Wyatt Six were now moved from Raw to SmackDown. That happened last week. This week, we had Bayley now being known that she's over on Raw. Same with Nia Jax, because I'm not certain if they mention it on commentary or not, but I think Nia Jax has been moved over to Raw because she'll be facing off against Rhea Ripley as Saturday Night's main event for her Women's World Championship. As well as A-Town Down Under, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. They have been officially moved over to Raw as well, as we found out on SmackDown. And also on SmackDown, we did find out that Damian Priest and The Miz, they have been moved over to SmackDown. So the trade has happened so far, and this is what's been going down so far with the trade window for Raw and SmackDown, which is cool. I do like seeing these trades actually going down. So it is what it is. What else happened on the main roster this week? Oh, yes. we're getting to see Kevin Owens actually become what he actually hates. You're starting to see him become more of a Roman Reigns type. And I can't even really say Roman Reigns type, but for WWE, I say lore of what he's doing right now, he's becoming Roman Reigns. Because on Raw this week, you had Sami Zayn come out to cut a promo talking about how he's going to win the Royal Rumble. And as he's doing this, out walks Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens comes out. He tells Sami Zayn that he actually believes in Sami to win the Royal Rumble. And he even makes mention of how they went to WrestleMania together. They main evented WrestleMania together, won tag titles in the main event of WrestleMania. But the one thing they haven't done together is main event WrestleMania against one another for a WWE championship. And Kevin Owens tells Sami that he feels that Sami Zayn is going to win the Royal Rumble because Kevin Owens has his back. And Kevin Owens says that he knows he's going to win and retain his WWE championship because he knows Sami Zayn has his back. The same way that Sami Zayn had Roman Reigns' back. So now you see Kevin Owens start to play the manipulative mind game to Sami. And he even lays it out that he knows that he can forgive Sami because Sami's not like Jimmy and Jay and all the rest of them that has, or even Cody that went over to help out Roman Reigns and all that. He knows Sami Zayn's heart. Sami Zayn is a nice guy who's able to forgive people that have backstabbed him. He talked about Roman Reigns doing some horrible things, and Sami's been able to forgive him. He even mentions himself that he's done terrible things to Sami, and Sami has always been able to forgive him. So he's kind of, again, twisting Sami in a position to kind of like say, hey, if you're able to forgive Roman Reigns for treating you nasty and doing horrible things to you, and you were actually able to work with him, I kind of expect you as a brother to be in my corner and help me when I go against Cody at the Royal Rumble in a ladder match. So you got Kevin Owens kind of being like a gaslighter to Sami on Monday Night Raw. The same way that Roman will be a gaslighter to Jimmy and Jay when he was doing his whole bloodline thing with them a couple of years ago. So again, Kevin Owens has become what he's hated. He hates Roman Reigns, but the tactic that Roman Reigns does to manipulate his family, you can see Kevin Owens is doing that right here to manipulate Sami Zayn. So it's going to be a real interesting piece to see where Sami Zayn, or what Sami Zayn does at the Royal Rumble. Will he actually interfere in the match with Kevin Owens and Cody? I can see that play a part a little bit, but then I can see him come to his goodwill nature and not actually do anything. He might just pop out, and it might seem like he's going to do something, but he just, in the end, just watches as Kevin Owens ultimately loses, and Kevin Owens will probably go insane and just blast Sami, either in the Rumble or as Sami Zayn is going to make his way down to the Rumble match and actually attack him at the entranceway or something. I can see that being the way that we go with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But again, we'll have to wait and see for next week's premium live event of the Royal Rumble. What else happened on Raw? Or in the main roster in general? Penta, he had another match this week. His match against Pete Dunne was cool. Penta win again. And this is now his third win that he's gotten, which isn't a bad thing because WWE wants you to realize who Penta is. They want to put focus on who Penta is and really kind of like build up Penta, in which I have no beef with that, and I think nobody has a beef with that. You had the New Day, who they were supposed to have a tag matchup this week, but ended up being a one-on-one matchup of Kofi Kingston going against Rey Mysterio. Kofi did not wear any colorful type of gear. If anything, he just came out in black jeans and some like gloves and like regular shoes. So he's really trying to, him and Xavier's trying to move away from the colorful New Day aesthetic. Even the whole New Day song in Titantron, that played and they say, cut that. So again, we're we're seeing a new, I'm not going to say portrayal of the New Day, but a new aesthetic to their, at least, wrestling attire. And I would like to see what the new entrance music in Titantron is going to be when they actually do debut that. But, yeah, Ray would end up beating Kofi Kingston, by the way. And after the match was over, Xavier would attack Ray from behind, and then the rest of LWO, which is Raul and Wild would come out, and Wild would get thrown into a steel ring post by Kofi, and you see Kofi and Woods just scurry off to the back. So again, they're playing the cowardly heels perfectly here. What else happened on Raw that was important? Drew McIntyre went against Drew McIntyre went against Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins would end up beating Drew McIntyre. This was labeled as their WrestleMania rematch. Seth would beat Drew McIntyre. After the match was over, Drew McIntyre would beat up on Seth Rollins. Sammy would come out to make the save. And as Drew was beating up on Seth in the corner, Sammy would run over to try to hit Drew with a haluva kick, but Drew would move out of the way, and Sammy would ultimately end up hitting Seth with the haluva kick, and Seth would drop to the mat, and Sammy would look so perplexed at what he just did to Seth. Drew would leave out of the ring with kind of like a smile on his face, and again, this could be laying the groundworks for Seth to snap off on Sammy, because this has been building for some time. Seth had a little snap off session with Sammy after Sammy and the rest of the Usos and Punk helped Roman at Survivor Series. So you had that moment. You had last week's moment of Seth kind of grilling Sammy, saying that he's always helping other people out. When is he going to help out himself and actually go and win the big one? And I can just see Seth losing it next week on Sammy in the ring or backstage, one of the two, because of that haluva kick that he ate this week. So we gotta look out for that next week on Monday Night Raw. SmackDown, it was a 3-hour show, which was, I'm used to SmackDown being 2 hours, man. 3 hours is pushing it for a Friday, SmackDown event. I'm hoping that WWE, whoever is controlling the time with their television rights, I hope that they can get it back to 2 hours like soon, because this 3 hours thing, it isn't working for SmackDown. I'm just gonna be blunt, it isn't working. SmackDown, what big moments happened there? DIY, they found out they would be facing the Motor City Machine Guns at the Royal Rumble in a best of 2 out of 3 falls matchup. Can't wait to see that at the Rumble. As I stated, Priest showed up on SmackDown. Miz showed up on SmackDown because they're now SmackDown stars. Priest went against Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo would lose Damian Priest. Jamie Uso and KO had a match in the main event of SmackDown. KO would end up winning that match. He ends up trying to beat up on Sammy more after the match is over, but Cody Rhodes will come out to make the save. And SmackDown will end with Cody and KO just brawling. Not too much, I'm not going to say important information happened, but I mean, like, another big, like, moment I'll say that happened was Tiffany Stratton was in the middle of the ring talking a little bit. Then Rhea Ripley came out. So you had the two champions actually face with one another. And then that's whenever a whole smorgasbord of women start coming out. The Nia Jax, the Candice LeRae, Naomi, Bianca, Liv, and Raquel. That's whenever you had everybody come and just beef one another there. But SmackDown, again, it was cool, but 3 hours, man, it is pushing, dog. It is pushing, and I hope that they find a way that they can just start leveling that out. Anyway, as I stated, that was SmackDown there. Now let's move over to what's going to happen on tonight's episode of WWE Saturday Night's Main Event. You have, in the main event, I presume is going to be Gunther defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Jey Uso. You also have the Intercontinental Championship being defended, a Braun Breaker defending it against Sheamus. You have Braun Strowman going against Jacob Fatu. You have the Women's Championship, the Women's World Championship, being defended. Rhea Ripley defending her title against Nia Jax. And then you have the contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, which will be upheld by Shawn Michaels, who will be the mediator between both gentlemen, where Shawn will be collecting both the WWE Championship that Cody Rhodes is walking around with, the actual title, and the Winged Eagle WWE Championship that Kevin Owens is walking around with, the same title that Cody was given that title by Triple H at the last Saturday Night's Main Event. So Shawn will be collecting both WWE Championships. So next week at the Royal Rumble, they'll be hanging up in the air. You can already expect some type of chaos to come down between Cody and Kevin Owens at that contract signing. I presume probably Shawn might eat a super kick by accident, by KO maybe, but I expect some type of chaos because that's always happens at the contract signing. The Women's World Championship, Rhea and Nia, I expect them to have a good match because they had a great match at last year's Elimination Chamber in Australia. And I believe the results are still going to be the same, just like last year's Australia show. Rhea Ripley's going to retain her title over Nia Jax. Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu. This is two big guys just doing battle with one another. This is Jacob Fatu's first singles match, I want to say, in WWE. I want to say, if I'm not wrong here, I want to say this is his first singles match. But this will be his first match, like, from under the skin of Solo Sikoa as a singles competitor. So Jacob Fatu, he's gonna beat up on Braun Strowman and more than likely get the win over Braun. But I expect Braun to do some damage to Jacob, so this isn't gonna be a squash match. I expect probably about a good 65-35, 65 in the percentage of Jacob doing damage to Braun here. Intercontinental Championship, Braun Breaker going against Sheamus. Give it to Sheamus. Have Sheamus beat Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker's still a young guy. He still has a whole future ahead of him. Him losing to Sheamus here, I don't think it would do any harm to Braun at all, especially knowing the type of match I know we're going to get from Braun Breaker and Sheamus. Yeah, he's not going to go down bad in this match for Sheamus, but I think it's time for Sheamus to get the Intercontinental Championship so he can become a Grand Slam champion. So go ahead and give it all to Sheamus here tonight. And for the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther versus Jey Uso. Gunther's retaining. I understand Jey Uso is main event Jey Uso. We all want him to become a big main world champion because that's what the whole bloodline character, the whole big storyline arc that they have with Jey Uso becoming the right-hand man to becoming his own man, main event Jey Uso, to the fans just really rocking with Jey. That's the whole thing, what we've been doing to get Jey to this point. So I expect Jey to get a world championship win probably before the year's over. But tonight, no. Gunther is going to retain his title as Saturday Night's Main Event, and Jey will get his world championship win, I'd say, before this year's over. So, yeah, Gunther's retaining his World Heavyweight Championship here. Yeah, that's about it. So, this has been your Wrestling Highlights of the Week, presented by My Two Cents Podcast, hosted by G2. I hope you guys have a great Saturday or great day whenever you listen to this episode. Do note that tomorrow, Sunday, I will be talking about everything that happened in the world of news this week, the big headlines. I'll be talking about that this week. If you didn't listen to my midweek episode this past week, go ahead and listen to it. I talk about Snoop Dogg getting criticism from the hip-hop community for what he's done this past weekend. But anything else I gotta say? No. So again, have a great Saturday, everyone. This has been your Wrestling Highlights of the Week, presented by My Two Cents Podcast, hosted by G2. He's I and I'm him. I love you all. Be blessed. Bye-bye now. We heard people.